ANBERNIC's dual-screen handheld console has finally made its debut. It's currently open for pre-orders. Let's get a sneak peek at it. This specific unit is an engineering sample, and as such, it might have some variations compared to the final released version, so it's strictly for reference only. Hey, check it out! Now you can simultaneously study and game. Let's see what else. Let's check out the other accessories. Doesn't this design bear an uncanny resemblance to the Nintendo DS? Just observe the speaker's design. Even with this section obscured, both the upper and lower screens are precisely the same size. In addition to this particular color, it's also available in two other variations, one in striking black and red, and another in a vibrant blue hue. Furthermore, there's a stylus included. The screen itself is of the capacitive type. This is a capacitive screen, not a resistive screen like the older Nintendo DS, so you'll definitely need to use a capacitive stylus. It's a bit unfortunate, however, that this capacitive stylus isn't integrated into the device's body. The old Nintendo DS had it conveniently tucked away right here. If you prefer to view the top screen, simply tap on the bottom screen. Of course, you also have the option to press the R button instead. Upon pressing it, a notification will appear, indicating that the display is now on the top screen. Pressing it once more will then confirm it's on the bottom screen. This allows for distinct applications to run concurrently on both the upper and lower displays. Let's now assess the tactile quality of the buttons. The directional pad employs a conductive rubber membrane, as do the A, B, X, and Y face buttons. These are also membrane buttons. The four function keys A, B, X, Y also utilize a membrane design. At the top, you'll find its dual speakers, which share an identical design to those on the Nintendo DS, shaped like plum blossoms. Even the clever concealment of the screw holes is designed to be precisely the same, mirroring the classic aesthetic, ensuring a seamless and authentic reproduction of the original handheld. These two shock-absorbing rubber pads are also identical in design. Now let's examine what it looks like when it's folded closed. When shut, it's designed to magnetically hold the screens together, complete with a Hall sensor for seamless detection. The front surface, as we can see, is made of a glossy material, but this specific part of the front surface of the device, the paint material imparts a distinct feel, exhibiting a captivating, shimmering, almost rainbow-like effect, particularly noticeable when light reflects off it. Positioned centrally is the microphone. Above it are the L1, R1, L2, and R2 buttons, all employing micro switches. Further along, you'll find the TF card slot, an OTG port, and right here is the charging port, which accommodates a maximum of 5 volts and 1.5 amps for charging. There isn't any video output port on this device. The left side is completely devoid of buttons. Over on the right side, you'll find the volume up and down controls, along with the power switch. This small light here functions as the power indicator. At the very bottom, there's a 3.5mm headphone jack, and on both the left and right sides, there's a lanyard attachment point. Let's now thoroughly inspect the device's rear. The back prominently displays the ANBERNIC logo alongside detailed specifications, noting a robust 4000 mAh battery capacity. When expanding it, the hinge exhibits exceptional rigidity, enabling it to hold its position at any desired angle. The broadest possible opening angle measures 180 degrees. You can also place it down flat. Personally, I usually hold it at this specific angle. Let's give it a slight shake and observe if the screen shows any movement or instability. It feels exceptionally secure and firmly constructed. Both opening and closing the device require the use of two hands. The hinge remains notably stiff and stable when held in this particular position, and equally so when held here. And it snaps shut like so. Now let's stack it up against the entire Nintendo DS range to compare sizes. Its physical footprint is actually quite alike to the Nintendo DS XL model, often known as the Big Grain NDS, sharing pretty much the same thickness. When opened, we can see the screen sizes are identical, and the button layout, originally positioned lower, has been shifted upwards. It's actually somewhat larger than the original Nintendo DS. The A, B, X, and Y buttons are also notably bigger than their original counterparts. All components have been elevated to accommodate the two analog sticks. All the primary function keys are now positioned on the sides. This is the power button, with its indicator light located on the right. The upper section maintains a significant resemblance to the original. However, the R button here is somewhat smaller, but its L button is considerably larger. These screens feature full lamination, both the upper and lower displays. The original version, however, did not have full lamination. The lower screen was resistive, necessitating the use of your fingernail for control. This one, conversely, is a capacitive screen, so you can simply use your finger. To the left is the DS Lite, which is the slightly smaller version. of the DSi-XL. I seriously think ANBERNIC ought to consider putting out a smaller version of this RG-DS. I truly feel it would be considerably more comfortable to hold. This DS Lite, after being stored away for quite some time without being played, has developed a noticeable yellowish tint on its screen. And regarding the original clamshell design, well, now that brings us to the original unboxing, which is an interesting point. You should now have a really good grasp of its actual size. It's on par with the DSi-XL. Both the top and bottom screens are IPS panels, boasting identical resolution and dimensions. This eliminates any color variation between them. As for resolution, it's capable of displaying Nintendo DS games at 2x integer scaling, meaning the screen can perfectly reproduce every minute detail. Its dimensions will be somewhat reduced. The operating system is Android, and the device is powered by the RK3568 processor. Let's briefly examine its overall performance scores. The Antutu benchmark shows approximately 150,000 points. While this level of performance might struggle with 3 DS games, it's perfectly adequate for Nintendo DS titles. Furthermore, the screen offers 5-point touch functionality. The top screen is also touch-sensitive, supporting 5-point multi-touch functionality. As you just saw, our applications can be displayed on both the lower and upper screens. A long press on an icon allows you to launch the application on the second screen, which then appears on the upper display. However, if you find that method a bit cumbersome, there's a convenient application scaling option located right here below. These are all your applications. Tapping here launches them right here. To control whether an app shows on the upper or lower screen, simply press the R button. A single press puts it on the bottom screen, and another press moves it to the top. This functionality is essentially a focus toggle, a common feature found in most modern dual-screen handheld devices. Furthermore, within the game's interface, you also have the option to configure various settings. Our launch screen, just like with the Nintendo DS, when you play RPGs on a DS, you can always choose between the top or bottom screen, right? For instance, if we wanted it to start up on the top screen, in the settings menu, there's now an additional display setting. We just need to click top screen, then hit save, and when we return to run our game, it will effectively launch itself on the top screen. At this point, we're able to play videos on the bottom screen. Then, if we switch back to the top screen, the application that was running there will seamlessly continue. You can exit by simply swiping up on the bottom screen. However, swiping on the top screen won't close applications. Naturally, you always have the option to close all applications from the bottom screen, as it serves as the primary display, while the top screen functions merely as an auxiliary one. Alright, so we finished discussing the integrated functionality of its top and bottom screens. Now let's specifically examine the Nintendo DS games, considering they utilize both screens, and this device's design is purpose-built for the NDS. Once an NDS game launches, you'll see a linked state between its top and bottom screens. Right now, we're observing the full screen display. This screen. A filter has now been applied to the display. Take a moment to observe, everyone. The screen's filter effect looks quite pleasing. Although it hasn't achieved pixel-perfect rendering yet, we certainly have the option to enable that feature. Should we turn on 2x integer scaling, the screen will in fact diminish in size. You'll clearly see this happen. Observe, while this arrangement might not strike you as immediately comfortable, the display now presents a flawless, pixel-perfect image. Transitioning to the lower screen, let's also maximize the volume. The audio output from these dual speakers is in fact remarkably good, offering a pleasing listening experience. Now down to the lower screen, let's also crank up the volume to the maximum. The sound from these two speakers is quite impressive, offering a delightful auditory experience. Let's take a look. While it might not seem entirely comfortable at first glance, the display is now perfectly pixel mapped. Moving to the lower screen, let's also turn up the volume to maximum. The sound from these two speakers is quite good, offering a pleasant listening experience full screen. A picture-in-picture setup, what kind of feeling is that? It's like those Russian nesting dolls. In the majority of these Nintendo DS games, you actually need to use the lower screen for touch input. Just double tap it, and you're able to scroll through. Now let's also conduct a thorough comparison with the actual physical hardware. We'll examine how the real device's display performs alongside its running display performance. Visual performance. As you can see, the screen's visual output has improved significantly compared to older models, and it's fully laminated. Back in its day, the DSi-XL, despite its larger size, had a good IPS screen with decent display performance. However, when directly compared, you'll find this screen's brightness is substantially higher. Do you notice the filter? Now let's take another look at the screens. This is more of a pixel display comparison, and I must say it's still quite impressive. So let's now examine the latency when playing Rhythm Heaven. We'll attempt to swipe on both sides simultaneously to truly assess its performance, shall we? However, an emulator inherently introduces more input lag compared to the original console, necessitating a period of adjustment for the player. We've been gaming for some time now, so let's investigate where the thermal hotspots are located. Given that this handheld device lacks any active cooling mechanisms, let's examine its heat distribution. The heat is primarily centralized in these areas. On the upper screen section, the temperature is 33 degrees, with minimal warmth detected around both the left and right speakers. The lower screen's heat is primarily concentrated at the junction between the upper and lower displays, hovering around 34 to 35 degrees. The D-pad area, located on the left, measures approximately 30 degrees. Regarding the right side, the ABXY zone is a tad warmer, around 33 degrees Celsius, but still manageable. This area at the bottom likely relates to the ribbon cable, with a temperature of roughly 34 degrees Celsius. This pertains to its illumination. Specifically, given it's an LCD screen, the backlight LEDs for both the upper and lower screens naturally exhibit higher temperatures. The same holds true for this section. Now let's take a look at the reverse side. We need to identify the exact location. Considering the heat distribution on the rear, this particular area is likely where the processor unit is situated. The section immediately beneath that is most probably the battery compartment. You should be able to observe this. The temperature is It's around 32 degrees Celsius. It feels warm to the touch, but it's not so hot that it's off-putting. Seeing that it also includes a 3DS emulator, let's give a 3DS game a try and observe its performance. Given this specific 3568 model, with a benchmark score of 100,000, we really shouldn't anticipate it to handle graphically intensive 3DS titles with ease. Upon closer inspection of the audio, a persistent crackling sound suggests that this device faces significant challenges when attempting to run 3DS games. Moving on, let's try a PSP game. This particular one is presently configured to operate at a standard 1x resolution, allowing us to assess its performance in that context. The frame rate fluctuates. In areas with a lot of characters, it might drop to around 25 frames. Now let's check out Shin Budokai 2. Alright, let's start the fight. The frame rate is indeed subject to fluctuation, and in areas densely populated with many characters, it could potentially dip to approximately 25 frames per second. Now let's turn our attention to Shin Budokai 2. Alright, let the match begin. Shin Budokai should definitely be able to achieve 60 frames per second. Furthermore, consulting game guides or walkthroughs on the upper screen proves to be quite convenient. As you can see, I have the ability to conduct a direct search right here on the top display. For instance, if I search for Castlevania, its input method or keyboard is actually quite effective. After a long press, we can. When you observe it, you'll notice it appears on the lower display. What specifically manifests? The input method, of course. It doesn't occupy any portion of the upper display, which means we can effortlessly view pertinent guides on the top screen while simultaneously engaging in gameplay on the bottom. Additionally, a remarkably well-executed feature by ANBERNIC is its artificial intelligence translation capability. Let's take a look. It translates the text instantaneously right here, simply a single tap. And it's instantly translated. You can also view this game from the sidebar with one click to view the game. The sidebar will display information like the game's related types, strategies, and more, all accessible for inquiry right here. The screen brightness is uniformly controlled across both screens. Adjusting it here will simultaneously adjust the brightness of both the upper and lower screens. This way. You can now. I've carefully examined the control performance of its screen. It's really quite good. There's a tiny bit of latency, but we've already seen its gaming performance. The dual screen interaction is thoughtfully designed, featuring focus control and an adaptive keyboard that scales to fit. Its AI is quite impressive, including features like one-touch translation, among others. Regarding its performance, regarding its specifications, this design and performance level are truly only suitable for playing NDS games. It features an RK3568 processor, achieving a benchmark score of approximately 150,000. Appearance-wise, if you cover this section, it's essentially a spitting image of the DSiLL. Now let's proceed to disassemble it and examine its internal construction. Alright, all screws are removed. Just slide the back cover all around and it will open up, revealing its internal components. You can clearly see its processor, the RK3568, positioned right here. There's actually a substantial amount of space above it, offering plenty of room for DIY projects, like installing a heatsink. For instance, you could apply thermal paste or pads and attach a large cooling fin on top. That's entirely achievable. That's possible. This is the battery compartment, and these are the two joysticks. The internal layout appears quite condensed. The vibrator is a common rumble motor. The upper section consists of the screen and the hinge mechanism. We won't proceed with disassembling it further during this session. So, what's my assessment of its internal performance? In my personal experience, the utility of these two joysticks is not particularly substantial. Effective. As for PC games, it's rare to see them running at maximum frame rates, except for those that are exceptionally well optimized. This is mainly because the RK3568 processor isn't particularly robust. One minor drawback is that the stylus cannot be stowed within the device's casing. Additionally, the hinge on this RGDS model is remarkably rigid. It's quite stiff, so it might take a very long time for the hinge to loosen up. Alright, that wraps up this video. If you have any questions, please remember to hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons to support your host. I wish you all a wonderfully joyful day.